I would like to acknowledge the Gamilaroi and Gomeroi people, who are the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to elders both past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today. Welcome back to Term 3, Cal Rossi. I know that in the current COVID climate we can't meet and celebrate Naidoc Week as we had planned, but I've created a little video here just to go over the theme and give you some things to think about. So, what is Naidoc Week? Well, Naidoc Week is a series of celebrations held across generally July each year to celebrate the history, culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. First, Naidoc stood for a National Aborigines and Islanders Day Observance Committee, and this group in the early 1900s advocated and protested and demonstrated for Indigenous recognition. So, over the years, it's now come to be a celebration of what we now know as Naidoc Week. So the acronym is stuck as the acknowledgement of the week. So each year there's a different focus for Naidoc Week, and the theme for this year was Heal Country. So healing country doesn't just mean healing the environment, but it also asks us to reflect, challenge and resolve many of the outstanding injustices which impact on the lives of Indigenous people. So I'm going to give you an example through an experience that I had back in 2017. I was on a holiday to the Northern Territory. I travelled from Alice Springs to Katajuda and Uluru and stopped along the way to experience art, experience the environment, meet people and ultimately to be a tourist and experience what the country was like. I ate a widgety grub. This is actual footage. And this was me shortly after. It more tastes like scrambled eggs, but that doesn't matter. So, the highlight of my trip was when we visited the Red Centre, which is Uluru. We got on a bus and we travelled to the cliff face per se, and there's only 40 days of the year that you're allowed to travel Uluru. Otherwise, the conditions aren't perfect enough for you to do so. Now Uluru is closed, but this was before that. So 40 days out of 365, you could do it. The day that I went was one of those 40 days. You come to the cliff face and there's this sign up. This sign is in every language known to me, probably not historical languages, but every language that tourists from around the world would need to understand that you're asked not to climb Uluru. It's a matter of respect, it's a matter of safety, so you're asked not to climb. Our tour guide, who was also an Indigenous elder, asked us not to climb, and he gave us 3 reasons why. Erosion. So you'll actually see, if you ever go to Uluru, you can see from the cliff face, the amount of people that have walked up and down Uluru has left it, it's white. It's like because the amount of traffic up and down Uluru, and it's degraded the rock. You can see there's a trail through it against the red dust. A matter of respect, Uluru was a very significant spiritual site for the Anangu people who still live on the land today. I'm going to go over that in a minute, but they don't climb it themselves, and they ask respectfully for you not to climb. And they do cite generally that they ask you not to climb because there's been about 42 deaths from people climbing Uluru, and it's like our tour guide said, it's like somebody dying at your house or drowning in your pool. It leaves a terrible mark on that area. So, erosion, respect and death. I was in a tour group of about 20 people. 3 of those people, myself included, chose not to climb. That's right, not. The other 17, after being told by our tour guide and after reading the sign, chose to climb. So I'll leave that with you for a minute because I'll talk to you about that in a sec. So I did the base walk. The base walk's about a 10-kilometre walk, and it's beautiful. There's sacred sites, there's Indigenous art, and there's these lovely water springs and pools that are still used by the people that live on the land. So you've got the animals using those springs for water and drinking, and the local people who drink from the water too. To my horror, shortly after I left Uluru, a number of websites and media outlets started saying that tourists rushing to get to Uluru before it closed, and to get into those 40 days, would leave their rubbish. They would climb up to Uluru, and because there's no toilet, there's no portaloo up there, they would go to the bathroom. They would do a poo or a wee up on the top. The rains would come and would filter back into the water pools. So people who hadn't thought about how important Uluru is as an ecosystem would just blatantly do their business at the top, and it would wash in to these water springs, and these people and animals were drinking it. So you can see that there's what's the word? There's a lack of respect there, and an understanding that country is not treated correctly. And this isn't just international tourists. These are tourists from all over Australia. So why am I telling you this? This was one example that I have experienced personally, but you'd know from watching the news or looking on Instagram or reading Facebook. There's a whole range of offences against country. So whether it's mining, whether it's bulldozing trees to make highways, these are a bit more on a grander scale than my poo story. But that idea that you have to understand that the country isn't just land for the Indigenous people. It's about their ecosystem. It's how they live. It's how they connect with the environment. And us just coming in and doing, well, not us per se, but people coming in and affecting country without understanding that sacred and spiritual link can cause devastating effects, whether it's the extinction of rare shrimp on Uluru or the amount of people that have been made sick from drinking the local water. So Naidoc Week isn't just about shaming, and it's not asking us to, it's not pointing the finger at everybody saying you're all bad. It's a celebration. It's a celebration of Indigenous culture and a recognition of, helping each other, pulling people up. So there's a few examples here of like Naidoc. During last week, you had Ash Barty win Wimbledon. You had the NRL Naidoc Week round. You even had 10 News using local nation names on their weather reports. So it's about recognition and validation, and also understanding, being empathetic. So taking on another person's point of view and understanding why they feel a certain way. So what can you do to celebrate Naidoc? Naidoc was last week. We were going to celebrate at school this week, but there's a few things you can do that are still COVID safe. So you can have a respectful chat with family, friends and teachers about the theme and what it means to you. You might support an Indigenous business, where there's some really cool ones online doing face masks at the moment. You might want to get creative in the kitchen. You could do some research about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history, culture or art. As the art teacher, I'm going to say Finding the Archibald, ABC iView. There's some really good episodes there on Indigenous art and its significance in our culture. There's some great movies on SBS, ABC, Netflix and Stan. I recommend The Final Quarter with Adam Goods or In My Blood It Runs. Maybe just doing a bit of research about what local or national place names and words mean. And lastly, you can join the conversation online or look at the conversation online through the hashtags I've listed there. So ultimately, it's not the day, it's about understanding the significance and also celebrating Indigenous culture. And ultimately, I hope that this video is giving you something maybe to think about and talk about. But I hope that you engage in some form of Naidoc celebration, and good luck with the rest of the term.